Thanks, Glenn. My name's Butch Maslin. I'm alcoholic, and I want to thank Glenn for the invitation to come and share a little bit in the meeting today. I consider it a privilege to come here and be a part of the meeting. I consider it a privilege to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not saying that because it sounds nice or I need you to like me. I'm saying it because I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I'm a guy who considers it a privilege to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and to be a part of this fellowship and our program. So I am happy to be here. I never cease to be astounded when I come on one of these Zoom meetings of this platform and what we're able to do here. I'm not a technical guy. I'm not a computer guy. I was just saying, I just gave up my BlackBerry last year. It was a traumatic experience for me. I bought 4 of them because I knew they'd end at one point, and I finally had to get rid of my last one. So this technology is not my thing, but I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated every time I come on this screen and I see people from North Carolina and from Kentucky and from Arizona and all over the world. And it is really amazing, you know, when that COVID hit, Alcoholics Anonymous and members picked up this platform, it seems like almost overnight. And I want to tell you that I'm extremely grateful to be back live in the meeting rooms. In Canada, the restrictions were more than in the United States. My home group, this is going to sound crazy to you, my home group was 1 week shy of 2 years being closed. If you ever would have said to me that your home group is going to be closed for 2 years, I'd have said you're right out of your mind. And so I'm very, very grateful that we're back in our meetings and that, and I'm very grateful that this platform is still here and provides a great service for many, many people. And so I'm happy to be here. I didn't get the fellow's name who just had the 29 days, but welcome back to Alcoholics Anonymous. We're certainly glad to see you here, and our wish and prayer today is that you grab onto this program and have continued sobriety in this good way of life that we get to have here. My wife said to me before leaving, she went out, she said, make sure you don't screw this thing up today. You can always count. You know, if there's anybody here that's new, I know there's a gentleman of 29 days, anyone else that's new here, we know that the ego, self-centered, self is the root of our troubles. That is the root of my problems. There's lots of visual problems, but that's the root of them. And that's what our 12 steps are designed to treat that. But if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous and haven't done your steps, or maybe not so new to Alcoholics Anonymous and haven't done your steps, you can count on your fellow members to deflate your ego for you. They will take care of that. Let me assure you of that. I had a guy a while ago now, Carol, that he called me up and he said, I'm from Ottawa, and we have a conference here, and asked me if I'd be able to come. Ottawa is our capital here in Canada. And I said to him, is your conference at the Crown Plaza Hotel? He said, yes, it is. I said, do you just have the one conference there a year? He said, yes, we do. I said, well, I think I should tell you, I think I spoke at your conference maybe 4 or 5 years ago at the most, and it might be a little soon for me to come back there. And he said to me, he said, I've been on the committee for a long time. He said, I don't remember you. I said, well, I have that effect on people. I said, maybe what you should do is talk with your committee. If you want me to come, I'm happy to come. If you think it's too soon, want to get someone else, I understand. He said, good idea, Butch. I'll get back to you in a couple days. He called me back a couple days later. He said, Butch, I've talked to everybody on the committee and nobody remembers you. And that's how it should be, isn't it? That's how it should be. So anyway, it's good to be here. My home group is the Three Legacies group. I'm in awe of your group, meeting 7 days a week, and that's incredible. And I'm a group guy. I believe in the home group. I believe that the home group is the heartbeat of AA. That's not podium banter. I believe that. I believe that home group should feel what it's called. That when I go to my home group on a Monday and Thursday night, when I walk into that meeting, I feel that I'm at home. I'm at home. And I used to say I belong to the best group in the world. I don't say that any longer. I find it very arrogant of me. But I belong to a strong group, Alcoholics Anonymous. I belong to a group where all three legacies are in place. Where recovery from our illness, our program, our 12 steps is outlined in the basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous. We study and teach that program. But there's more. Where there's fellowship and we operate under unity and our traditions. Where our traditions aren't something stuck on the wall to be read once a week, but where we study them and practice them as a group and as individuals of a group. I belong to a group that believes in service, where it's not one or two individuals constantly doing everything, but we work together as a group to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. We don't make coffee and hope they come. We go get them. We go get them. We have committees go to our detox every Monday and Thursday to bring those new people to our meeting. On Monday night, we have a beginner's room so that those new people, when they come, I don't know if this happens in Kentucky or not, but I go to meetings here and there's brand new people from a detox and we say to them, join a group and get a sponsor. Like they somehow know what that means. So we have that beginner's group so they can find out what it means to get a sponsor. How do we get a sponsor? What it means to be a member of a home group, what we do and what we don't do. And so we have that in place and that for those people. I'm a guy that believes in enthusiasm. You're going to find this hard to believe this afternoon, but I'm an enthusiastic guy. I love enthusiasm. And don't you love it, huh? When you walk into your group and there's that energy in the room, there's that chatter in the room, there's laughter in the room. It's just like being in a bar. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Everybody talking, nobody listening. Nobody listening. Alcoholics are the most self-centered people in the world. You ever tried to talk to somebody after the meeting? 10 people walk up and say, I don't mean to interrupt. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. If you come to our home group on a Monday or Thursday night, there'll be 6 or 8 people at that door to shake your hand and welcome you. Because I'm a guy that believes that's one of the most important things that we do as a home group. When that new guy or new gal walk through that door for their first meeting, an in-depth version of step 4 doesn't mean a damn thing to them. But a warm handshake, welcome, come and get a cup of coffee and sit here with us means a great, great deal. So I am happy and honored to be at a strong group, Alcoholics Anonymous, this afternoon. Where are we going? I was 4 years old. And my mother's neighbor came over to my mom's house. He didn't know my mom too good, but I guess he felt compelled. He came over to my mother's house and knocked on the door. My mom let him in, and they were standing at the doorway, and I was sitting over in the living room on a couch. And the guy he pointed at me and looked at my mom and said, I want you to know you're raising a juvenile delinquent. I'm 4 years old, for God's sakes, and this guy's calling me a juvenile delinquent. Now, I got to tell you, that guy turned out to be a prophet. He was a prophet, that guy. I'm now 10, 11 years old. I don't know. I'm in a classroom at school, and the teacher announces there's going to be a walkathon where you get people to pledge money, and you walk a lot of miles, and the poor people get the money. She said, I want you to come up to the front of the class and get your sheet to get your pledges on. Now, I sat at the back of the class where the smart kids sit. And I made a conscious decision from the time I got from the back of the class to the front of the class, I'm taking 2 sheets. One for the poor people, one for me. I figure if I'm walking, I'm getting some of the cash. And that's how I was to go through the next 20 years of my life. Lying, cheating, and stealing. Some sort of sense of entitlement. I don't have to do a hard day's work for a good day's pay like you. I go out in that world and I take what I want. And I'm an extreme example of self-will run riot. And I haven't even started doing serious drinking. I'm 25 years old. And by now my wife is throwing me out of our home. And I want to tell you that I loved her as much as I was capable of loving at that time. It's important that I say that to you. As much as I was capable of loving at that time. And she'd throw me out of my house, and I'm living in the stairwells of apartment buildings in downtown Toronto. At nighttime, I was under the stairwell, and in the daytime, I was out in the streets like a rat in a sewer, out looking to score, to scam, to rip somebody off, to get the money I need to get to do the things I need to do. I hear people in Alcoholics Anonymous talk about AA luggage, matching green garbage bags. I didn't have any AA luggage. Had the clothes on my back. Still had an ultra suede jacket though. Going to be cool at any expense. If I was any cooler, I'd have froze to death. I'm 25 years old. I'm living in the stairwells of the apartment building. Nobody wants anything more to do with me. And let me add right now, nor should they, because alcoholics of my type are takers. I use and I take from everybody I come in contact with. Now, it doesn't always appear that way, because I'm a guy who's constantly seeking your approval. I'm a guy who needs you to like me. So you don't display that anger and all that there. You keep it for the people who you love. That's the people that hurt most, the people who care about me, because they love me so much they can't stop trying. One more time, this time it's going to work. One more detox, this time. And they keep giving and giving, and I keep taking and taking until eventually I break their hearts. And they got to push me away because they can't stand it any longer. And that's where I am. That's where I am. I'm in East End of Toronto one night, all jacked up and nowhere to go, as I said. And my wife and I owned a home in what we call the Beaches, down near the lakefront. And there was a screened-in porch there and a couple wicker couches. And I thought, I'm going to slip in there and get a couple of hours and get out before she wakes up. Well, I pass out, and I wake up to one of these. And I opened my eyes and looked, and there was that little gal that I loved. And she looked at me with disgust and pity. And she said, Butch, you're a useless piece of scum, and you'll never change. And if you cared anything about me, you get up and get out of here, and please don't come back, because I can't stomach to look at you. And I got up and I left there, Glenn. It was a hot, hot summer day, and I'm hungover, and I'm dirty, and I'm heartsick. And I'm sitting down there at the lakefront on a park bench. And about 10 feet away, there was a little boy sitting on a park bench eating a popsicle. And I looked over at that little boy, and you know what I thought to myself? I wish I had a popsicle. The big shot, the dope dealer, everybody's friend, good old Butch, sitting on a park bench wishing he had a dime for a popsicle. Nobody in this world wanting anything more to do with me. And I had a thought that moment as clear as I'm thinking right now. I knew at that moment that that park bench or somewhere like it was where I was going to end back up every time. And I knew it beyond a shadow of a doubt. I was 25 years old. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 33. I had 8 more years on those streets. And I will not bore you this afternoon with a horror story, because I don't believe it would serve any purpose. You see, if you're alcoholic like me, you already know it never gets better. It always gets worse. And I had 8 more years on those streets. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 33, and I joined a group. And I got a sponsor. And I did the things you told me to do. Forget this suggested crap, the stuff you told me to do. You know where I was a number of years ago, huh, Chris? I was in Rome, Italy. Oh, Rome, Italy. Standing in the Sistine Chapel, looking at the paintings of Michelangelo from hundreds of years before, my wife standing beside me, and the tears started to roll down my cheeks. And I thought of that guy sitting on the park bench wishing he had a dime for a popsicle. Long way from that park bench to the Sistine Chapel in Rome. It is a long way from where you and I came from. Many of us here this afternoon, the dredges of society. Many of us here today, our own families didn't want us any longer. Yet here we sit this afternoon, members of Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe Al-Anon, living good, rich, full, productive lives. How do we get from where we were to where we sit this afternoon? How does that happen for you and I? Because it's not supposed to happen for you and I. But you know how it happens, don't you? It happens one way, and only one way. And that is through the grace of God. Through a loving God and a forgiving God that you introduced me to through the 12 Steps Alcoholics Anonymous and a fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. You sure want to believe I'm grateful to be here and a part of this society. I started to drink at an early age. I hear people in Alcoholics Anonymous talk about dysfunctional families. I said to my sponsor one time, I said, Bob, do you think I came from a dysfunctional family? He said, "You were in it." Cruel sponsors, cruel sponsors. I don't know if I came from a dysfunctional family or not, but let me tell you, there was a lot of parties in my home. Always on the weekend, there was a party and drinking and that going on. As a little boy, they let me play bartender. I could take the beers and take away the empties, and they'd let me have swigs, and they'd say, "Isn't he cute?" And I loved that attention. So I started to drink when I was 4 years old. Now, I wasn't a daily drinker when I was 4. My allowance wouldn't allow it. I actively sought out alcohol, I don't know, 12 years old, something like that. I got a guy to go into a liquor store, get us a couple bottles of wine. I was going to be a wine connoisseur. 2 bottles of Old Sailor. I think that's comparable to what you call Thunderbird in your country. We used to say, "Come alive" for $1.05. And I'll tell you, any wine I ever drank had a cap, not a cork. We drank that wine, got drunk, puked, and passed out, and that was the end of my social drinking. All downhill from there. Now, I don't know about any of you at your home groups and that, but I go to some meetings sometimes, and I hear people in that meeting say something like this: "Yes, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous hoping Alcoholics Anonymous was going to help me become a social drinker." Huh? You hear that, Dwayne, in your meetings? Came to Alcoholics Anonymous hoping Alcoholics Anonymous was going to help them become a social drinker. Let me tell you today, I didn't want to be a social drinker then. I don't want to be a social drinker today. I don't particularly like social drinkers. I find them weird. Weird. You ever watch a social drinker drink? They let the ice melt in their glass. That is sick drinking. Friends, that is alcohol abuse. You ever drink with a social drinker? It's enough to make you puke, isn't it? You're having a few scoots. Would you like another one? Oh, no thanks. I'm starting to feel it. Oh, Jesus. I thought that's when you put it in overdrive, social drinkers. I'm a barroom drinker. I don't identify with closet alcoholics. Doesn't mean they're not alcoholic. You know those people that get the bottle, go in and lock the door, put on the country western music? I don't identify. Barroom drinker. I love bars. I love it. I like opening the door to a bar. That smoke would billow out, the tinkle of glass, the smell of stale urine. I love it. I love it. And I'll tell you this, I like neon. I like neon when I was drinking. I still like neon. That's why I stay out of those casinos. They're not good for guys like me. And I got to tell you this, I thank God I never tried to get sober in the United States of America. I don't know if I'd have made it. I love drinking in your country. You got many more than we got here in Canada. I call them juke joints. You know those divey, scuzzy little joints, huh? With a little neon sign says cocktails. Oh, beautiful. I went to an AA thing a number of years ago in Pennsylvania. I decided to drive. My wife's with me. I'm driving down the main street of this little town, and I hammer on the brakes to my car. I'm backing my car up, and my wife said to me, "Butch, what are you doing?" I said, "I got to see this again." Guys, there it was. This divey, scuzzy little rat hole joint had a neon sign. Said, "Stop for one, stay till one." Oh. If I had been drinking, I'd have had that tattooed on me. Anyway, I'm not going to talk anymore about my drinking, but I want to tell you this. In our stories, when we tell our story, we talk about some of these escapades and with laughter and carrying on and that. And we're supposed to. The book tells us that. Tell them some funny stories. Laughter is good for us. But I don't want to leave anybody here this afternoon with the idea that I was just on one big party having a good time, that everything was wonderful in that. You see, let me assure you, I'm like the tornado roaring through the lives of others. I'm the guy with his broken marriage and hurt people and damaged children. My drinking wasn't one big party, and I don't ever want anybody to see that or have that idea. And so I want to just quickly share, particularly with the gentleman with 29 days, of what drinking does for an alcoholic of my type, for me. Not to me, but for me. And the things I'm going to quickly share with you, I did not know this when it was happening. I had no idea of any of this at the time. I saw it in inventory. I saw it when you took me back through my life and helped me see my life honestly for the very first time ever. For the very first time ever. But as I look back today, I remember being a young boy in school. I don't know, 10, 11 years old, however old. And I'd be in that classroom and the teacher would ask a question. And she'd start looking around the room to see if she's going to ask to answer that question. And my head would go down like this. because I knew if she made eye contact with me, she was going to ask me to answer the question, and I didn't want to answer the question. Didn't even matter if I knew the answer to it. Didn't know. When I went to school, used to have to do book report. I don't know if they still do that. You get up in front of the whole classroom full of kids, no good, no good. I get up in the morning, I'd say, "Ma, I've been puking all night, I'm sick, I can't go to school, please don't make me go today." Because I want to tell you that I would be terrified at the thought of getting up in front of that classroom full of kids. Every decision I made in my life was based on fear. Most of it unfounded and ungrounded, but fear. Where I go, what I do, who I hang out with is all based on a comfort level. I don't know about any of you, but I every now and then would get goofy. I go on about a 5-day run, and I get home after 5 days, and I walk in, my wife would be sitting there waiting, and I'd say, "Sweetheart, that's it. No more. No, I know I said this last week, but this time I swear on my ma's life, I'm never having another drink of whiskey as long as I live." That's Sunday. I wake up Monday. I'd have to go to a wedding that following Saturday. You ever go to a wedding sober? It's a bad deal. It is a bad deal. I'd wake up, I'd be at that wedding sweating, thinking about the reception that's going to happen in 3 hours. I'm back at that reception and the dance is going to start and I don't have anything in me and my hands are sweaty. I got a knot in the bottom of my stomach. I feel awkward and out of place, and I have to do one of two things. I got to get over that bar and get a couple drinks into me, or I got to get out of there because I can't stand the way I feel. Fear. Fear. The evil and corroding thread, the fabric of my existence was shot through with it. Fear dictates my life. It takes me around like a little puppy on a leash. And that fear. And you want to know what kills an alcoholic like me? I don't even know I'm afraid. I think I'm afraid of nothing, and I'm afraid of everything, and I don't even know it. We talk an awful lot about in meetings, discussion. Let's discuss resentment tonight. I prefer to call it hate. Hate. I know you're not that sick in the United States, but in Canada we are. Hate. I'm the type of alcoholic, I'm in my car and I'm at a red light and I'm on the nod by now, and that light would turn green, and the guy behind me would lay on his horn. Whoa, I almost go through the roof of my car. I want to get out of my car, go back there, open the door, drag him out by his throat, take a crowbar and crack his skull open. Now I know you nice people here never thought thoughts like that, but I do. I'm not talking anger management. I'm talking rage. I'm talking the kind of anger that you don't have 10 minutes before and you don't have 10 minutes after. But I got an anger in me that comes out every now and then and I can't control it. And I say things to people or do things to people I never wanted to say or do. And do you want to know who takes the brunt of that rage? The people who love me. Happens behind closed doors. You see, because I'm always seeking your approval. So I keep that anger for the people whose approval I think I already have. Lonely. Lonely. I'm standing at a subway platform in downtown Toronto on a Saturday night, all jacked up, and a train pulled up and the doors open, and a young couple my age got off that train holding hands and walked off into the night laughing and smiling. And I looked at that couple and I felt sad. I felt like crying. I thought, why can't I be like those people? Why is all the trouble got to keep happening, all the crap in my life happening? It says in our book that if you and I are an alcoholic of this type, we'll get to a place where we can't imagine life with drinking, but we can't imagine life without drinking. And when we get to that place, we'll know a loneliness such as few people know. And we have known that loneliness in a crowded room, in a crowded room. So that restless, irritable, fear, anger, loneliness, and I don't know about you, but I'll tell you something. I get one of those double vodkas, it was just like this. I did that in a meeting when the two guys left. They remember the feeling. Let me tell you something. I have 2 or 3 of those vodkas and those sweaty hands are gone. The rage subsides, the loneliness vanishes, and I walk into that wedding like I own the joint, and I am moving and grooving. And I'm sitting with the ladies, and I'm talking with my buddies, and at that moment, everything in my life is absolutely perfect. And the world is a much better looking place. And I get an immediate, not in 28 days, an immediate sense of ease and comfort. And that's why I drink whiskey, because I like the effects it produces. But I'm alcoholic. Something happens to me that doesn't happen to the non-alcoholic, called a phenomenon of craving. I'd start drinking, I'd drink 60 ounces of vodka, I'd smash up my car. I'd go out after work for a few beers with my buddies, I go on a 5-day bender. I don't go to work, I get fired from my job. I tell my wife I'm going out for a loaf of bread, I run into Gary, I come home 3 months later, my wife's sleeping. I'm out there drinking, partying, carrying on, I don't want to stop, I got no money, so I'm stealing yours. And now I go to jail. And what everybody focused on in my life was crashed cars, broken marriages, lost jobs, going to jails. We looked at drinking. We looked at drinking. We never looked at alcoholism. And people told me from the time I was 18 years old, if I just quit drinking whiskey and sticking needles in my arms, I'd be okay. And there was times I wasn't drinking whiskey, and guess what? I wasn't okay. As a matter of fact, I'm crazier sober than I ever was when I drank. But all those well-meaning people could see that was when I drank the trouble that followed, so naturally they said stop drinking. On September the 21st, 1989, 2 men came to my mother's house practicing Alcoholics Anonymous in its purest form. Now that should tell you something right there though, shouldn't it, Sarah? My mother's house. Somewhere every 33-year-old self-respecting alcoholic should be is with his mummy. 2 men came to my mother's house practicing Alcoholics Anonymous in its purest form. They made the effort to leave their homes that day. They drove to my mother's house, came to my mother's house, and talked to me about their drinking. They did not talk to me about my drinking. They didn't tell me I shouldn't drink, I shouldn't drug, I should go to treatment. They didn't tell me nothing. Those 2 men talked to me about their drinking and told me what had happened in their lives since they came to something called Alcoholics Anonymous. Would I like to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with them? I was a helpless, hopeless, chronic alcoholic. I'd been running the streets, drinking whiskey and sticking needles in my arm since I was 13 years old. And those 2 men came to my mother's house that night, September the 21st, 1989, took me to my first meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been with you ever since that night. I don't know what to tell you about that, but I want to tell you this. I'm extremely grateful for that experience, because that's not everybody's experience that comes to Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of people come to Alcoholics Anonymous to turn to drinking and come back to AA. A lot of people come to Alcoholics Anonymous to turn to drinking many times and come back to AA. Some people come to Alcoholics Anonymous to turn to drinking and never come back to AA. But that was my experience, and I'm grateful for it. Another thing I'm very grateful for is I've loved it here. I've loved it, Glenn, since that very first night, that very first meeting. I left that meeting and something had happened. I didn't know what it was. I know today what it was, but I didn't know that. I left that meeting that night with a little bit of hope, And I hadn't had any hope in a long, long time. I have a deep love in my heart, a deep, deep love in my heart for the old timers. Men and women have been coming for 40 and 50 and 60 years, who've made sacrifices and commitments to Alcoholics Anonymous so it'd be here for a guy like me and the new gentleman today. I love them from the bottom of my heart. And if you are new to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would strongly urge you to get close to these men and women and learn from their experience, because we won't have them with us forever. And I had some giants come into my life. I've heard people say in Alcoholics Anonymous, you should never put people on pedestals. Well, you do what you need to do. But let me tell you right now, I have some people on pedestals, giants in our program, giants. Never for a moment have I lost sight of their humanities. The greatest gift, my sponsor was an old timer in Alcoholics Anonymous. Glenn, my sponsor came to Alcoholics Anonymous on July the 17th, 1958, and was an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous until the day he died on June the 10th, 2004. And that old man, he and I were as close as 2 human beings could ever be. And I'll tell you the greatest gift that old man gave me. It wasn't some profound thing he pulled out of the book, some divine spiritual wisdom he laid on me. The greatest gift that old man ever gave me was he allowed me to see his warts. He allowed me to see him get afraid. He allowed me to see him get angry. He allowed me to see him get selfish. He allowed me to see all of him. Because if he hadn't, and you don't continue to, I'll never measure up. We are much more brothers and sisters in our defects than we are in our virtues, aren't we? And I had some wonderful people come into my life. You see, you were the very first people who helped me understand what my problem was. I don't know about you. Maybe you knew what your problem was when you got to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't have a clue. Now, I'd been told what my problem was. As a matter of fact, quite a few people told me. My parents had told me what my problem was. I had 2 or 3 wives tell me what my problem was, a couple judges, and half a dozen psychiatrists. I'd heard my whole life, just quit drinking, you'll be okay. You were the first people who said to me, kid, drinking's not your problem. Drinking's my solution. You see, how I feel when I'm sober is my problem. You see, sober, I'm prone to misery and depression. Sober, I can't seem to control my emotional natures. Sober, I can't form true relationships with others. Sober, I can't seem to make a living or be of real use. Sober, I'm full of fear and unhappy. Sober, I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. Friends, that is a spiritual malady. That is untreated alcoholism. That is an unmanageable life. And an alcoholic of my type, not drinking and not treating that illness, sober, I will get so uncomfortable, I have to do one of 2 things. I don't have a choice. You see, I've lost the power and choice. That's the difference between me and the guy that goes out and gets drunk every weekend and goes to work Monday morning, as described in our book as a hard drinker. But I am an alcoholic. I have lost the power and choice. So not drinking and not treating that spiritual malady, I'll get so uncomfortable, I either have to drink again or blow my brains out. Most of us drink again, but we all know somebody who's paid the supreme price, don't we? Didn't have a clue. Selfishness and self-centeredness, that you told me was the root of my troubles. And you told me above everything, I must be rid of it, or else it will kill me. And there seems no way of getting rid of it without God's help. And that is the purpose of our 12 steps in our program. Through some actions that I take and some principles I try to live by, I can get connected to a power that would solve my problem. I thank God for strong sponsorship. I'm the product of strong sponsorship, and I believe in strong sponsorship. And I'm a guy that believes that without strong sponsorship, our chances of recovery are very, very limited. So I'm grateful, and you took me through that process we're not going to talk about today. We don't have time. But you took me through an inventory. I go to inventories, Glenn, sometimes I hear people, you'd almost think we're discussing a confessional here. You told me that that inventory is a fact-finding mission. Fact-finding. You see, because I don't deal in facts. I deal in delusion. I, at certain times, drunk or sober, cannot differentiate the truth from the false. I can't differentiate. Fact-finding. If self is the root of my troubles, I need to see how self manifests in my life in many different ways that I don't even see happening. So you took me through that fact-finding mission so I could see what selfishness and self-centered looks in my life. And you took me through defects and carry. You took me through the restitution, the amends process, an incredibly freeing thing for a guy like me. Freeing thing for it. I was wrapped in self my entire life. I don't know about any of you, but I'll tell you right now, for my entire life before Alcoholics Anonymous, for a long time in Alcoholics Anonymous, and today if I'm not in fit spiritual condition, every single person I ever met, I automatically, it comes as natural to me as breathing, I size myself up. And every single time, I was either better than or less than. Not one single time was I ever the same as. And because of inventory, because of restitution, because of the loving God, because of this whole package, today, I can just be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. No better than, no less than. Today, I can be one of God's kids, just the same as you. That is a freeing experience for a guy who's been wrapped in self his entire life. And so you took me through that and you introduced me to a loving God, the great gift that you gave me. I was never a disbeliever. When I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, if you'd have said to me, do you believe in God? I'd have said to you, yes, I do. It had as much meaning in my life as the price of coffee beans in Brazil, but I wasn't a disbeliever. And if you'd asked me about God, I'd say he's way up there in heaven. And he's got long hair and a big beard and a big stick. Charlton Heston. That's an actor for you newer, younger people. And if you are good, good things happen. And if you are bad, bad things happen. Chuck Chamberlain used to say that we have one problem and only one problem. That's all you and I have is one problem. And from that one problem come a lot of other problems, but we just have that one. And that one problem is a conscious separation from God. If God's way up there and I'm down here, have you ever heard more of a conscious separation in your life? You were the first people that said to me, no, kid, deep down inside, every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. And in the final analysis, it is only there that he can be found. And the central fact of my life, the great reality, is my Creator's entered my heart and lives in a way that is indeed miraculous. You introduced me to that God through listening to your stories and watching your actions. That's why we tell our story in Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the purpose of an AA talk, in our own language and from our own point of view, how we're able to find a power that would solve our problem. I thank God again for that sponsorship. And the great paradox, if we want to keep this thing, we got to give it away. That nothing ensures us immunity from drinking like intensive work with other alcoholics. When all else fails, this works. The occasional good deed is not enough. My very life as an ex-problem drinker depends upon my constant thought of others. Unless I continue to enlarge and perfect my spiritual life through unselfish acts and helping others, I will surely drink when we hit those certain low spots. If there's anybody here that's been in AA for a year or two and everything in your life is absolutely wonderful, buckle up. Buckle up. Because life will happen. Life will happen. And when it does, I better be connected to some power. We've been richly blessed, haven't we? Glenn, we've been richly blessed. We could ask all the people here today, how's your license coming to Alcoholics Anonymous? You know the answers we hear, Dwayne. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's the greatest thing in my life. It's given me a life. On and on. If that wasn't enough, you and I are then given the ability to change people's lives. That's not an ego statement. That is a statement with gratitude and humility. You and I, when armed with facts about ourselves, that's what this process is doing. We have a singleness of purpose. We have a primary purpose, but our book talks also about our real purpose, to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God knows about us. So armed with facts about ourselves and our solution, we're able to win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few short hours. Until such an understanding happens, little or nothing can be done for the alcoholic. You and I have been uniquely gifted to help others. What a blessing, huh? What a blessing. The bright spot in our lives will be with one another, to watch others get well, and them in turn help others, to have a fellowship grow up around us, and have a host of friends. We think this is an experience you'll not want to miss. If you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, don't miss it. Don't listen to this, just don't drink and go to meetings crap. Get yourself a home group and a sponsoring into this work and watch that fellowship grow up around. It's a beautiful deal. I got time for a story, maybe 1.5 quick stories. Yeah, I think 1.5. I know we got some new folks here today. I think it was Dave or Dan with the 29 days. We don't come to Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't want to lend. When we come and tell our stories, we carry a message of hope, right? We want you to identify first of all, and then give you a message of hope. But we don't want you to leave here thinking we just come and do 12 steps and then float off into Wonderland. Life still goes on. Life still goes on. A number of years ago now, our 7-year-old granddaughter, Sarah, was diagnosed with leukemia. And she had to go to Sick Kids Hospital for 5 months and have chemotherapy and a spinal tap once a week. And that little girl never complained one single day. In that 5 months, she was with family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our family, we took shifts, and she was never in that room a single moment without family and not with her. And after those 5 months, the cancer went into remission, and Sarah came home. And a few months later, then the cancer came back, and they said it's worse. And she's going to be here for another 5 months, the strongest chemo and the strongest radiation we have, and she needs to have a bone marrow transplant. She has a 30% chance. And we spent all that time again in that hospital. She had all that done, and we didn't have at the beginning, we didn't have a match for the bone marrow, so our daughter got pregnant hoping that the baby would be a match, but he wasn't a match. And so they were going to do a stem cell transplant. It's something that we're doing newer today and back then. But it meant Sarah was going to be in isolation for 4 months and very, very sick. They wipe everything out of you. There's nothing left in you. That's why you have to be in the isolation. Well, they did that stem cell transplant, and the doctors couldn't believe what they saw. It worked incredible. They had never done a stem cell transplant with somebody who'd just given birth. And something about that, I don't understand it, but made that stem cell work, and it was incredible. They were talking to children's hospitals all over St. Jude, sick kids all over the world. And Sarah wasn't in isolation 4 months. She was there 4 weeks, and she wasn't even sick. And she came home cancer-free. And a few months later, the cancer came back. And they said, there's no more treatment. There's nothing more we can do. You take your daughter home. She has 6 months, and you make the best of it. And Sarah came home, and she was feeling good. And I want to tell you this, that in that 6 months, our granddaughter met Justin Bieber. Yep. Our granddaughter heard Katy Perry. Our granddaughter drove a real race car. And in October, the Toronto Zoo brought reindeer to the house in a sleigh and a Santa Claus so she could have a Christmas, because she wasn't going to be here at Christmas. And she did a lot of things in that time, and she felt good up till almost the last couple of weeks. And last week, it would have been 7 years ago, we buried our 7-year-old granddaughter. And that was a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing. It says in the 12 and 12, I'm paraphrasing, so don't be yakking at me after, that self-examination, prayer, and meditation, when taken separately, produce a wonderful result. But when logically interwoven, form an unshakable foundation for life. Our granddaughter passed, and some people said to me, Butch, you talk an awful lot about that God. How did that God let that little 7-year-old girl die? That little girl never did anything to anybody. If there's this God you're talking about, why didn't he take care of her? How did he let that happen? And I said God had absolutely nothing to do with Sarah passing. But the moment she passed, God had everything to do with that. There's a line in our book that says we will lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. I have no idea what this looks like. I cannot fully define or comprehend, but I believe that our little girl is in a place so beautiful, you and I can't even imagine. And maybe if there's been somebody that's been ripped out of your life, we're there with her as well. Everything in my life that is good. I got time. I got to tell you one more quick story. I promise I'm done. Our book says make sure your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Oh, what a promise. What a promise. I went to a conference a number of years ago in Kelowna, British Columbia. It's on the west coast, 3,000 miles from us. And it was a little weekend thing, a couple hundred people. And I was talking there on Saturday night. And they did the countdown. I know most of you have been at a countdown before, and we find the newest person in the room. Everybody screams and yells, loses their mind. It's beautiful. Anyway, they did that countdown. They got all the way down to 1 day. And it was in a sort of a hall. It was dark in there. I couldn't see clearly at the back, but I could make out it was a young gal stood up for 1 day, and the place applauded. It was a beautiful night. Anyway, the next day, Sunday, on the program, it said there was going to be a breakfast in the morning and then a closing speaker. Well, I had a morning flight home. I knew I couldn't catch all the meeting. I thought I'll go over for the breakfast and maybe a bit of the meeting. So the guy was taken to the airport. We sat by the door so he wouldn't interrupt the meeting when we had to leave. I'm there, and a young gal comes walking into the hall with two little children. And you knew this girl was new. And you knew this girl had not much. You could tell the way those children were dressed. They didn't have much. And I saw it, Matt, and it just grabbed my heart. And she come walking up to me. She said, "Are you Butch?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "You spoke here last night." I said, "Yes, I did." She said, "Well, you said some things that helped me." I said, "Well, thank you." And I encouraged her to get a sponsor right away and get a group and that. And she went, she sat her two children at the table, and she was walking up. The breakfast was just a few tables with some bagels and fruit on it. And she went up to get some breakfast for her children. And the thought came to me, this might be the only meal those children eat today. And it just tore at my heart. And I thought, geez, I wish there was something I could maybe do for her, maybe give her a few bucks, you know, to help out. And I'm him and Han, some old geezer giving a young gal money in the meeting. Kind of weird. I'm still worried about what people think of me, for God's sakes. Anyway, just then the meeting started. And I thought, well, maybe I wasn't supposed to. So anyway, I'm there. Then I've got to get going. I give the guy the nudge. But just then the gal goes out in the hall. And I thought, maybe this is my chance. So we go out. I said to the guy, "Go ahead. I'll be right with you." And the young gal was coming back in, and I stopped her. And I put a $100 bill in her hand. And she saw it. And she started to sob. And she said, "You have no idea how much this means, not for her. Maybe you can help another gal." So I come home from there. And remember, I'm not technical. I didn't know how to email or check email. My D would check for me. It's a beautiful thing. I don't have to hide anymore. Anyway, Dee calls me a few days later and said, "Butch, there's an email here I think you should see." And I go, and it's a nice email from the young gal, and she thanked me again. And she said she's still sober, and she's looking around for an apartment that she could maybe get for her and her children. And she'd like to go back to school and maybe she wanted to be a nurse one day. So anyway, sometime later, Dee said, "There's an email here for you." I go, it's the young gal again. And she again thanked me. She said, "Butch, I just want you to know that I have an apartment. Me and my children are living. I'm back in school. And on Tuesday, I'm going to get my one-year medallion. Great events will come to pass," right? Just before COVID, a while before COVID, I got a call, "Can you come to Kelowna, British Columbia?" The date was open. I said, "Yes, I can." I go out there, and I'm in the hall that night, and a gal comes walking up. She said, "Are you Butch?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "You spoke here 9 years ago." I said, "Well, I knew it was a while ago." She said, 9 years. I said, "Okay, 9 years it is." She said, "When you were here, you talked, there was a gal here for her first day." I said, "Yes, there was. And you gave that gal $100 to help her children." I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "I want you to know I'm her sponsor. She's sober 9 years. She's married, and she's a nurse today. And she's in Calgary. And she saw the flyer with your name on it. And she just had some surgery this week and couldn't come. And she made me come from Calgary to Kelowna, British Columbia to hug you and thank you." I got home from there, and a week later, there was a letter from Calgary. I thought, I know who this is. And I opened the letter, and there was a nice letter in there and a beautiful picture of her and her children at graduation. And there was another piece of paper folded. And I opened the piece of paper, and there was a $100 bill and a note that said, "I would never do anything to offend you, Butch, but I wanted to send you this $100 so maybe you could pass it on to another young gal like you did like me." I just got an email from her the other week. I hadn't heard in years, and I got an email. She's sober 14 years now and doing well. Make sure that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Glenn, thank you for the invitation. I want to thank you guys for listening to me. I don't know what's going to happen from here on in, and none of us know for sure. Just because we get sober and come to Alcoholics Anonymous, life doesn't stop happening. People get sick. People die. Relationships end. Businesses fail. But I'll tell you, every single morning, first thing this morning and again tomorrow morning, when I get up, I say to that loving God that you introduced me to, if you see fit, I sure would appreciate if you keep me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because my dear friends, there's nowhere in this world I'd rather be than with you fine people. Thank you. And